Hello, everyone. It's Deb Blum here, and this is the Inside Out Activism Show. Thanks for being here today and talking again about race, mainly about white women navigating and exploring racial topics from the inside out. And today we're going to talk about the idea that everybody has responsibility. So I remember when I was in a really hard time in my marriage about 10 years ago, maybe 11 or 12 years ago. Actually, it started as a really, really hard time in my marriage. And all I wanted was for my husband to change. And I was pretty adamant that my husband needed to change in order for me to be happy. And so I just was in the absolutely deeply entrenched victim position. And I blamed him, I criticized him, and I was pretty much like every time we talked, I told him all the things that he could do. And if he could do all these things, then I would be happy. As you can imagine, that didn't work out for me. And it ended up just getting worse and worse and worse. And it's not that my husband didn't try. He did try. But at the end of the day, it was not, I was not accurate in my assessments. I was wishing for things to change on the outside. I was wishing for him to change and thinking those things would make things better, but they never did. And now there was a lot of complexity in it. I'm not going to lie that my husband didn't do everything the way that I wanted, and there were a lot of reasons for it. But ultimately, we ended up in therapy because we really ended up in a crisis. So we ended up in therapy, and what I came to understand was that I need to that no matter what my judgments are on the outside, they might be really accurate. They might be totally legitimate. There were a lot of things my husband did need to actually work on in order to be in a better place in his own life and to be a better father and to be a better husband. There was no question, but it wasn't my job. My job was to do my own work. My job was to focus on my own lane. My job was to focus on my own, as my husband says, my own acre. And so it wasn't until I realized that the only person that I can change, the only work I can do is my own work. I can look out there and I can be mad at the world for all the things that are happening. But if I really want to claim a happier life, I really want to have a better marriage, if I really want to be a better mother, if I really want to feel better in my life, the only person that I have control over is me. Now, I don't want to suggest that there isn't an interdependence and that my relationship with my husband didn't have, it's a reciprocal, right? There's a lot going on, and it's relational and it's also personal. And we have to be holding both at the same time. We have to be holding the realities of the outside world. We have to be holding the other person, the other person's experience, and we have to be holding our own experience. And the reason why I like to look at things from the inside out perspective is two reasons. One is I believe we are out of balance. We are so oriented to the external and trying to change things out there that I think we've lost sight of doing the inner work that we could be doing, the inner emotional and psychological work and spiritual work that can get us to be able to become leaders of our own lives and to truly make the change that we wish to see in the world in a more sustainable, conscious, and evolved way and compassionate way. So the reason why I bring this up is this, that I'm going to cop to something for myself. I'm going to own up to something that I have experienced in my time doing work in my own racial exploration work, is that I have sometimes felt this sense of like, but don't they have responsibility? I mean, the Black communities have a lot of problems. There are a lot of things happening there. And even though I'm perfectly on board with that, there are all kinds of systemic things happening, and that there have been systemic things, and that things happened in the past that created circumstances that are existing now. I'm willing to see that there are ways in which I absolutely benefit from and have contributed to these systems of oppression. There's no denying that. I'm really seeing that very, very clearly. And I also have this sense of like, but it feels to me, and I could be just, I'm not seeing it, but it feels to me that the conversations aren't so much that around responsibility, that the communities, the Black communities, have to make their own changes. And I would say the same thing about parenting and families in white communities, that we all have our work to do. This is not, I'm not saying like, some groups of people have worse problems and they need to do their work and then we're perfect. Like, there's none of that, none at all. However, I did have a story that I carried, which was like, well, if I'm going to take responsibility and I'm going to do my inner work and I'm going to also do some outside work, I would like to know that the people that I'm, I guess, like an ally with, the work that I'm doing has an equal response with the people that I am like partnering up to walk forward together with, and that there's a way that I was holding this almost like I was a victim, like I was judging Black people for this idea that, like, why are you sitting in victimhood? Don't you want to take responsibility for your life? And I was also kind of feeling like a victim, like, what? So I'm supposed to do all the work and you don't do anything? And all of it's wrong. All of it's just so often wrong. Because at the end of the day, the reason why I want to do my inner work has many dimensions to it. So let me tell you a few of them. So for one, if I see that there's a problem and I'm contributing to it, it is my responsibility to do whatever I can to unpack and explore and own my part in that. So that is on me, because that's the way that I roll. That's the way I roll. That's how it works in my home. That's how it works in my marriage now. That's how it works in my life with my friendships. That I want to own my part. And I see that I have a part and that white people have a part. And so that is absolutely our responsibility. So this goes back to what happened in my marriage. That's like, I have a responsibility. And whether you are going to change and whether other white people are going to change, it doesn't really matter to me. I mean, it does, and I want people to change, but I'm saying I have to stay in my own business. My own business is that I make my changes. I make changes on the inside, because I know that that's part of the way that we're going to change things in the world. So, but the other thing is that I want to bring more humanity. I want to tap into my humanity. I want to have shared humanity. I want to connect with people. I want to tap into oneness, and I don't want the barriers that are there, the racial barriers that are there. I want them to be down, because I know that the quality of all of our lives will be so much better when we come into oneness and we move beyond our separateness, and we really truly understand that what I do to me, I do to you, and what you do to me, you do to everyone else. That it's everyone is impacting one another, and that there's every single way I behave has an effect on the world. And so regardless of whether other people do their work, whether it's in my friendships or my family or in my community or in the bigger world, if it's racial, if it's religious, whatever it is, anytime that I find myself in judgment or, deeply entrenched in a belief system, it's my job to come in and do the work of what it is why am I doing this thing that keeps me separate, which, by the way, makes me suffer, which ultimately makes everyone suffer, because what we're all craving is connection and oneness, and a sense that we are in this together, and a feeling that we can like to come to the place of, like, as cliche as it sounds, but like just more love and more intimacy and more connection. So with that said, if the question arises in you, something to the effect of, don't they need to do their work too? Or don't they have responsibility too? Because there was one other thing I wanted to talk about it. So on a spiritual level, I sort of touched on this with my husband, but on a spiritual level, that this is something that can that many people will disagree with, but I really wholeheartedly believe that every person plays a part, and that even when we're in situations where there are maybe more abusive situations, I'm gonna put aside the child abuse place of things, but let's just go to the place of when we're adults. If we're in situations where we're with someone who's mistreating us, there is a way that both of us are playing a part in that. And that doesn't mean it is not about blame. It is not about fault. It is not about that you asked for it. It's not karmic. I mean, it might be karmic, but I don't know that. But it's that there's a way that both of us are sort of weaved together, and ultimately we both need to do healing in order to become whole and not perpetrate and not be like a perpetrator and a victim anymore. We have to like come out of that into the place where each of us has a responsibility to do some healing. So when somebody gets out of an abusive situation, they usually have to do a lot of work. They have to learn things like how to set boundaries and how to love themselves and how to stand in their strength and to feel that they are worthy of saying no and of setting limitations and of not letting themselves be treated in ways that they may have allowed in the past. And so again, this isn't about blame. This is about that each one of us always has something to learn. And so in this case here, so that's the reason why I think for me, what was happening to me is I was like, well, wait a second, even on a collective, if I'm part of a collective group that is acting in one way and then there's this other group that is being hurt by this group. So the white group, is in many ways has been a history of years and years and years and years and years and lifetimes of oppression. That then the question is, what happens as we start to unpack that? Why would it be any different than any other relationship where and that's on a collective and on an individual level, that there is a way that we all have responsibility to do our own work. And the thing is that when that comes up for me and when I start to get kind of righteous, like, well, wait, you need to do your work too. And, I have to come back every single time to the only work that I can actually do. And I can invite other people like I am right now, inviting you to do this work too. But the only work that I can do is this work. I can do this work. I can do my work. I can understand my part in it. I can clean up my acre and I can continue to do my work. And some of that's going to manifest as actions out into the world in maybe some types of advocacy work or other types of ways that I might maybe donate money or time to causes. But it starts with inner work. It starts with me doing my work. And I have to do my own emotional healing. I have to do my own psychological healing. I have to be able to unpack belief systems, deconstruct things that I believe that are true, things that I didn't even know that I believed were true. And it's a journey. It is not something that we're not going to wake up one day and just have all this stuff unpacked. We have so many years and years and years and years of conditioning and generations of conditioning. We all carry the lineages of conditioning. And so, and lineages of trauma and lineages of you name it, right? You name it. What's happened in the past is part of us now. So the invitation is to, when you find yourself getting into that mode, I want you to, in some ways, just make sure we see ourselves as much as at the core we are one. There is also a separateness in the sense of that when it comes to doing our own work, we can wish for other people to do their work, but often we are wishing someone else would do their work and then not doing our own. And my suggestion is that we focus on doing our own. That is the focus. Every time that we want someone else to do something different, that's a place for us to look within us. Every time that we're feeling like the victim, that's a place to look within us. Every time that we're judging another person because they're not doing their work the right way, or judging a person who is trying to do their work, but they're not doing it perfectly, and then we're kind of a little bit righteous about it. Every one of those is another place for us to come back. And the specific example I'm giving you there is like, if you notice that you are around another woman, another white woman, and she's trying to handle her newfound relationship with her whiteness, and she's doing it in a wonky, uncomfortable, and maybe totally wrong way, I encourage you to resist the urge to shame her the way you may have been shamed, and to instead meet her with deep compassion to help her to see what she's missing, where her blind spots are, but don't perpetrate on her. Because part of this whole thing is to get out of the idea that perpetration is okay. We do these mini teeny tiny ways that we perpetrate onto other people, where we take ourselves to be knowing more or to be doing better, and someone else is doing worse, and we're in judgment of them, and then we feel righteous, and then we shame them, and we're perpetuating these cycles of shame and perpetration and oppression. And it becomes a place where we keep on looking. This is what we want to do, is keep on looking. Where is it that we could take more responsibility? Where is it that we can be owning our own experience? Where is it that we can be loving ourselves and being more compassionate to ourselves and more gentle to ourselves and more gentle to others? That is the invitation